I Torture Talk. Like, share, subscribe to the page. So continuing on with the Andrew Tate files. I'm not listening to. I'm going to listen to, and this might come to a shock to everybody. I'm listening to Fresh and Fit on this one. And the reason why I'm listening to Fresh and Fit is because Fresh and Fit knows Andrew Tate personally. All the rest of these dudes who are reporting on Andrew Tate and whoever, they don't know him personally. So I'm going to listen to Fresh and Fit, and I'm hoping that Fresh and Fit would tell the truth if if it comes out that all this stuff was true. Now, I'm going to tell y'all once again, I don't believe it. I don't believe none of this is true. I don't think that Andrew Tate is that stupid. I don't see why. I don't see why he would be that dumb. He's been bragging, boasting. He don't seem like the guy that would fumble something like that. Like, he don't seem like the guy that would do these things that these women are claiming that he would do. I just don't see how people would say that he would do this. I like, maybe he's into some sick type of fetish, but I don't believe that he would have did that. I don't believe it. So I'm gonna get into this Fresh and Fit. All right, man. Torture Talk. Like, share, subscribe to the page. So, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil has done this show I seen on another YouTube channel, and I'm going to react to it. As I said, you know what? I want to react to that. So, Dr. Phil is talking to people about defunding the police, and he has some ex-cops on there, and he got some people on there who believe that there shouldn't be no police officers. So, excuse me. So, let's get into it.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil. Defunding the police.
It's a complete disaster.
There's chaos at night. There's fires, there's shootings and stabbings. We don't have enough police.
Helpful cause?
People will do desperate things in order to survive. You're not solving anything by arresting those people.
Or harmful ideal. We're not trying to win an argument, we're trying to solve a problem. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, just as you said, Dr. Phil, one of the things that I thought was quite confusing from the beginning was when you say defund the police, depending upon whom you're talking to, it means different things to different people. So some people would say it means divest and invest in other areas. Some people say it means abolish. And so we needed to at least have a clear definition to actually figure out what are we talking about when we say that. I do think that, as I've heard many times before, people want, when police respond, they want officers to be fair and just and have equity. The melanin in your skin should not determine the service of police service that you get. However, the facts bear out that there is disparity. So we need to find a path forward to reduce that disparity, to eliminate it, but also recognize that we've made a lot of movement and advancement, and we need to continue to work on that in a practical manner that makes all of us here safer.
When we're talking about...
All right, so I want to speak to what she just said. So the reason why that there are a lot of police interactions with black and white officers is because nobody black wants to be a cop. A good portion of black people, they demonize police officers. They don't want to be a part of the force. They look at it as it's a part of white supremacy. They've been told this. And I wish that black people wake up and stop listening to... I wish black people wake up and stop listening to these outlets that push this agenda. Because that's all it is just an agenda. That's all it is. So when you say that black people are scared of police officers, so when you say that black people don't need cops or whatever you want...
a society where 1 in every 1,000 black men can expect to be killed by law enforcement, we have not made progress. When we talk about a society where Black folks in particular make up the majority of people that are profiled, targeted, incarcerated by our criminal legal system, we are not talking about progress.
I hate arguments like this. Because first of all, what statistics are you citing this from? That's one. Two, you're not counting all the criminal activity that Black men do. I hate when people do this. You have to tell the full story. You can't tell a piece of something and then get mad when someone calls you out on it. You ain't say nothing about the Black men in America killing each other. You ain't even mention that. Only thing you're trying to make it seem like cops are the ones doing this. It's a domino effect. How come y'all not talking about Black men killing Black men? It kills me. It really kills me that people are so obsessed with not telling the full story. I don't understand it.
Some things that I do want to address. Actually, there was not confusion about what defund means until law enforcement inserted that confusion. What I can say is that organizers, creators of this movement were always very clear that it was about redirecting resources to things that actually keep us safe.
Well, it might have been clear in the conference room. It might have been clear when y'all were meeting about it, but it wasn't clear on the streets, and it wasn't clear with all the people that took up the message and found a camera to stand in front of. Because I can show you 1,000 images that have the word abolish with defund. So the message got hijacked is my point.
When you're saying, suddenly we see people talking about abolish, well, defunding comes from an abolitionist perspective.
That's right.
Right? It is a long-term project that says, how do we create the conditions under which policing would not be necessary? And defund is the policy that says, well, a city budget has this much money going to police and this smaller amount of money going toward roads, towards housing, towards schools, towards recreation.
Why do you blame what's happening to Seattle on defunding the police?
I think people do misunderstand that word, and it's right there with abolishing the police. Once city council started talking about defunding the police, hell broke out. It's unsafe here. We've lost 300 to 400 officers. We're in crisis, and I think we're doomed. I don't even know if we can get back to where we were.
Well, Mark, you say San Diego is down 300 officers.
Yes, that's correct.
Has it had an effect?
It's been a horrible effect. The defunding plan has failed. It's a complete disaster. Our police are less safe, and the neighborhoods that need police the most are the ones that most affected, because it's the neighborhoods that are underserved, the underserved populations that need police. They can't afford to pay for pricey private securities or high-end surveillance cameras. Those are the people that are suffering, and make no mistake about it. Defund means take away money from police that were already running on tight budgets anyways. They didn't have enough money to do proper training. You know, officers have to have training. If you don't want the things to happen that you're claiming happens, then you have to train officers properly, and you have to
$1 billion in training,
you know,
$1 billion in cultural competency training, $1 billion in body cameras, $1 billion in all these things, and nothing has spread out. And I'm wondering
your
which plan,
program
because
made
the vast
crime
majority
go
of
up.
American
Your
cities
program
have
made
not
crime go up.
defunded.
This is first of all, stop saying bazillion. You can't say that they defunded the police and then put more money into the police. Maybe that happened. Maybe they did defund them. Maybe they did bring money back. Okay. But his argument is, if you've taken away funding from police officers, but then you say you want them to be properly trained, how can you properly train them if you're taking funding from them? That's his whole argument. You're going somewhere else with it. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
It just has
No.
not happened.
Crime has gone up.
That's
Violent
just a
crime,
mistruth.
rape,
Defunding has
robbery,
just not
all of
answered
those
those
crimes.
issues. I'm sorry.
Look,
We're not
Let's
trying
take
to win an
Oakland.
argument. We're trying to solve a problem
Let's-
here. Let me
sorry.
ask the question here. Isn't it true that defunding pretty much across the board didn't really happen?
Yes, that's what's true.
well,
Well,
New York-
budgets were reduced.
New York lost $1 billion.
But at least in LA, budgets were temporarily reduced. Most of the reduction was replaced with overtime with the officers they had, or the reduction was part of a citywide reduction. And most of the defunding diversion or reduction was regained the next year. So there hasn't really been a defunding of the
In some cases,
That's
I think,
what's
Dr.
true.
Phil, respectfully, I think in some cases budgets were reduced. I think part of the reason that some of the budgets were replaced and more money was given in because they saw the rise in crime and the rise in issues and wanted to mitigate some of those
So the
problems.
money came back.
And also,
Some of it.
Dr. Phil, when you have 9% inflation and gas prices that were pushing $10 a gallon in Los Angeles, and you leave the police budget the same, when health care goes up, when food prices go up, and you have these,
So
everything
what's your
went up.
point?
And my point is,
What's
by
your point?
not adding money, you're just defunding them just by
Why is
regular
the answer
economics.
to those problems police?
And adding money
not.
from where?
We-
Law enforcement in every major municipality across this country has the majority of the general funds. And I'll tell you all this. Anything you want, from fixing potholes to cleaning up your parks, when your electeds tell you they don't have the money, it's because badges and guns have that money.
Today, Dr. Phil,
That's not true. That's not true. The police does not have all the money. That's not true. I don't know where she got that from. That's not true.
it's chaos. We don't have enough police. Right now, we should be at around 230, 240 for a population of 72,000 people. We're barely at 175. There's chaos at night. There's fires, there's shootings and stabbings. It's a dangerous area. Even city employees are being attacked.
I want to introduce y'all to a man who wouldn't even be sitting here today if it weren't for the police. He says he once feared the police until one talked him off the ledge, literally. He now dedicates his life to advocating for suicide prevention and law enforcement. So, Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks for having me.
You had a life-changing experience with
Absolutely,
the
I
police.
did.
What happened?
March 11, 2005, I was overwhelmed. I had spent 22 years not dealing with my pain, lying about who I was. Born and raised in Oakland, California, never talked about mental health, never talked about anything that had anything to do about feelings, emotions, and I got overwhelmed that day. And I drove myself to the Golden Gate Bridge, and on that day, I literally got out there. And the only thing that stopped me was that officer, who I never even know. At the time, I didn't even know he was an officer. I thought he was a human being. Later on, got to meet him 8 years later, and found out he was an officer, and it changed my perceptive of how I looked at law enforcement. I used to call them cops, now I call them law enforcement, because I realize they are human beings and they're flawed, and they make mistakes, but they're not trained. The key word of what he said, they're not trained for certain things. They're trained to handle. They're trained to supposedly handle situations, but they're not trained to handle how they feel about themselves. They're trying to figure out their own lives along with having this job that expects them not to be human. And I think that we have to understand their point of view too. Now that I've been on both sides of it.
So how long did this stranger talk to you?
92 minutes.
Oh, specifically.
Yeah, 92 minutes.
And he got you to walk away.
Dr. Phil, could I just speak to that for a second with law enforcement? Because most police officers die because of suicide that are on duty. They don't die because they're hit by a car. They don't die because they were shot by a suspect. They take their own lives. And when you defund the police, you prevent them from having enough money to provide themselves with the mental health services they need.
I'm sorry, law
Exactly like
enforcement
that.
officers make so much money. We've got officers in Oakland that are making between $350,000 to $420,000 a year. And brother, I'm so glad you were sitting here and that was your experience.
Wait, what? What cop is making 300 to 400 grand a year? That's $500,000. Maybe you're talking about a sergeant or a captain or a lieutenant or something like that, but a field officer, 200. She said 300,000 to 400 grand a year. A field officer? I don't think so. I need to look that up.
The facts are, however, that upwards of 50% of people that are murdered by law enforcement are in the middle of a mental health crisis.
What your question is presuming is a world as it exists currently, right? And so when I say, oh, I don't believe there's a need for police, what I'm saying is that there has been so little investment in creating the conditions under which police would not be necessary. And that is the
There's
issue.
no condition in the world, you dumb motherfucker, where police are not necessary. There's no condition in anywhere on this planet where police, law enforcement, or whatever is not needed.
That is the holistic issue. And people are creations of the society in which they live in. And if you are a society that has such massive inequality, and you are a society that is based on racial and gendered hierarchies, and you are a society that deprives people of the resources that they need to live, talking about housing, clean water, food, all of these things that are part of an equitable society, you're talking about people that will do desperate things in order to survive. And so you're not solving anything by arresting those people. You're not solving anything by shooting and killing those people.
This guy sounds like a fucking retard. What are you talking about? I swear I fucking cannot stand people like this. I swear the whole matriarchy, oh my God, they're holding us down type of stupid motherfuckers. I hate motherfuckers like that. I don't hate them. I hate what they stand for. I don't hate him because I don't know him. But that type of shit pisses me the fuck off. It's like, what, dog? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Racial disparities? I guarantee you your jacket probably costs a lot of money that you got on your back. I guarantee you got some nice shoes, they probably cost a lot of money too. It's like, this is the stuff that y'all need to pay attention to. Because these motherfuckers like that, they use this shit to basically virtue signal. But at the same time, you talking about racial disparities and inequality and all this shit. Motherfucker, you probably got on some nice shit that costs a lot of money. I'm sure you don't shop at the thriftway store.
I agree with you 100% on society's failures about how that person became a criminal. My point is we also live in the here and now.
Hyundai Santa Fe versus Honda Passport. Hyundai Santa Fe wins.
And if someone invades my home and has my wife held hostage in the bedroom tonight, I don't give two about where they came from tonight. What I care about is a solution tonight. That doesn't mean that we don't need to solve the problem so my grandchildren don't get held hostage in their bedrooms 20 years from now. But when you say we don't need police because of developmental failures, that doesn't solve the problems that are occurring tonight, tomorrow night, the next night. Those things have to be dealt with.
Yo, look at this goofy dude face. It's like, yeah, exactly. It doesn't. You talking about listen, man. I want y'all to understand. Matter of fact, I'll say it at the end.
And I'm not I hear you. That is the fear that continues to drive us toward more policing.
No, that is the reality in which we live. That's not a fear.
Yes,
fear
it is
the anxiety or anticipation of something that may happen. What I'm describing is something that is happening, and we have to have guardrails. We have to have someone to turn to. We have to have someone on the end of 911.
I don't think that you can just land all those racial issues and put them on the police department itself. Because police departments recruit from society. And in fact, I would argue that there are much more stringent vetting of police officers than, say, your school teachers, your medical doctor, your bus driver, your postal worker.
All of those other professions do not have the ability to make a decision in a half a second of whether they're going to shoot somebody or not.
But
and
they
that's
have
the
the
difference.
ability
Lori,
to,
actually, for bringing us back to the point, because
Yeah.
I want to do something
But
I
they
should
do
have done
have the
at the top of
ability
the
to
show.
affect the
Natasha
life.
McKenna,
They absolutely
Tamir
do.
Rice,
They do.
Rashario Mack, Oscar Grant, Mario Woods. I could go on and on because what I do every day is hold or listen to or comfort women that have been raped and families that have lost their loved ones to the unthinkable. That is what happens. And so when we talk about law enforcement's humanity, I understand we need to have that conversation, and I'd agree that we need to deal with their trauma. But when they're having a human moment,
Right.
that far too often means we end up dead.
But let me explain something that's going to happen if you defund the police. Some other organization is going to take over the responsibility. And it's either going to be a gang, organized crime, it could be anybody. But if you defund the police and you have people feeling less safe in their neighborhood, somebody is going to patrol that neighborhood, and you may not like what they do.
Desmond, what do you want to say?
That is 100% facts. She couldn't say nothing to that. That right there is probably the realest thing I heard out of this whole conversation. If you take away the police, somebody's gonna do it, and it might end up being somebody that's 10 times worse. It's like you know what time it is. What he said was 100% facts.
Somebody who studies education a little bit more careful, because I know it's hard to remember, but we actually are on the same side here. Do we want a safer community? Same side as far as my concern, right? So it's now gotten to the point, though, where there is so much unedited discourse that you're worsening the problem based on how we're talking, right? We have defund the police. We have somebody in education. I have students saying, oh, yeah, we do not need a police force at all right now. There is a here and now where we do need police force. There's also preventative measures that we can take in education, right, that can prevent these things from happening in the first place. Is working together that out of the question?
When you've got law enforcement agencies that target people like me with misinformation and lies and put targets on our back, I don't know how then I sit down at the table with that person.
Do you have a story or a question for me?
That's a good clip, man. That's a real good clip. That was a clip. Good clip. Yeah, I don't agree with what the lady said at the end either. When you have law enforcement, have agencies that push the target on my back. Well, I don't think that, and my rebuttal to her would be, well, so cops are just going out shooting all black people just for no reason. They're just going out shooting black people. It's like they're not responding to something. Because if there were no crime and no one did anything, do you think cops would have just come in and just shoot black people? Like, come on. Either way, Touch Talk, you know what it is. Like, share.